Pablo Picasso, born the 25th of October 1881, place Malaga, Spain, died the 8th of April 1973, Mauguins, France. Periods Cubism.
Picasso was born in Malaga on the 25th of October 1881. His father was a painter and he taught arts. Started to paint very young, and when he was 14 years old started a proper arts school in Barcelona. In 1901 moved to Paris and he started to make sculptures, and also in 1907 paints Les Demoiselles d'Avignon. That was the beginning of Cubism. Picasso was a sculptor, ceramics, drawer, poet, mask maker. He was greatly recognized during his life. He died in Paris in 1973. Picasso's periods. Blue period, 1901 to 1904. Rose period, 1904 to 1906. Cubism, 1909 to 1912. Analytic Cubism. Synthetic Cubism. Blue period. Picasso used blue colors. All his works are very sad. Lonely and deeply depressed over the death of his close friend Carlos Casagemas, he painted scenes of poverty, isolation and anguish using almost exclusively blues and greens. Blue dominates the paintings. Marvelous expression of poetic subtlety. Picasso's style from classicism to abstract art. Artworks in blue period. La Vie, 1903, The Old Guitarist, 1903 to 1904, Les Gourmets, The Greedy Child, 1901. Femme aux bras crosses, Woman with Folded Arms, 1901-1902. La Soupe, The Soup, 1902-1903. The Tragedy, 1903. La Vie, 1903. La Vie, The Life, was painted in Barcelona in May 1903. It is 196.5 by 129.2 centimeters, 6.45 feet times 4.24 feet, and portrays two pairs of people, a naked couple confronting a mother bearing a child in her arms. In the background of the room, apparently a studio, there are two paintings within the painting. The upper one showing a crouching and embracing nude couple, the lower one showing a lonesome crouching nude person. The Old Guitarist. The Old Guitarist is an oil painting by Pablo Picasso created in late 1903 and early 1904. It depicts an elderly musician, a blind, haggard man with threadbare clothing, weakly hunched over his guitar while playing in the streets of Barcelona, Spain. Dimensions, 122.9 times 82.6 centimeters. Femme aux bras crosses, Pablo Picasso, done in 1902 during his blue period. The subject of the painting is unknown, but she may be an inmate of the Saint Lazare hospital prison in Paris. She describes her views of the subject as an inmate who recently attempted suicide and now carries the blank but menacing stare of those unfortunates who found themselves at Saint Lazare during the early 1900s. Les Gourmets, The Greedy Child, La Soupe, The Soup. Rose period. Rose period, 1904 to 1906, coincides with a period of increased personal joy and romance for Picasso. In 1904, Picasso met Fernand Olivier, a French artist and model. Olivier is credited for partially inspiring Picasso's artistic transition from the cold somber tone of the blue period to the increased warmth and lightness of the rose period. This period accordingly became known as the Rose period, 1904 to 1906. With his Rose period, Picasso favored a lighter, warmer color palette, subtle use of line, idealized forms, and more spirited subjects, such as circus performers. Picasso became fascinated with the fairground and circus performers and began to convey these saltimbanques and harlequins within his works. Picasso observed the saltimbanques firsthand at the Cirque Medrano and in the streets and the outskirts of Paris, where a migrant community of acrobats, musicians, and clowns often entertained passing spectators. Artworks in Rose Period. The Acrobat Family with Monkey, 1905. Family of Saltimbanques, 1905. Tumblers, Mother and Son, 1905. Acrobat and a Young Harlequin. The Acrobat Family with Monkey. Year, 1905-1906. Medium, Mixed Media. Dimensions, 104 cm x 75 cm, 41 in x 30 in. The work was painted at a key phase in Picasso's life, as he made the transition from an impoverished bohemian. The painting depicts a thin male acrobat in a tight pink harlequin outfit with bicorn hat, sitting on a drum to the left of a woman in a blue dress. They are both looking at a young boy held by the woman. Lower down and further to the right is a baboon, which is also looking up at the child. Family of Saltimbanques. Family of Saltimbanques is a 1905 painting by Pablo Picasso. The work depicts 6 saltimbanques, a kind of itinerant circus performer, in a desolate landscape. It is considered the masterpiece of Picasso's Rose period, sometimes called his circus period. Acrobat and a Young Harlequin. Acrobat and Young Harlequin is a 1905 painting by Pablo Picasso. Painted toward the end of Picasso's Blue period and the outset of his Rose period. The work displays characteristics of both, with its melancholic subject and its blue and rose palette. Tumblers, Mother and Son. Garçon et la Pipe. Cubism. Cubism is an early 20th century avant-garde art movement that revolutionized European painting and sculpture, and inspired related movements in music, literature and architecture. The term is broadly used in association with the wide variety of art produced in Paris, Montmartre and Montparnasse, or near Paris, Puteaux, during the 1910s and throughout the 1920s. The movement was pioneered by Pablo Picasso and Georges Braque. In Cubist paintings, objects are broken apart and reassembled in an abstracted form, highlighting their composite geometric shapes and depicting them from multiple, simultaneous viewpoints in order to create physics-defying, collage-like effects. At once destructive and creative, Cubism shocked, appalled and fascinated the art world. It made me feel as if someone was drinking gasoline and spitting fire, Braque said, explaining that he was shocked when he first viewed Picasso's Les Demoiselles, but quickly became intrigued with Cubism, seeing the new style as a revolutionary movement. French writer and critic Max Jacob, a good friend of both Picasso and painter Juan Gris, called Cubism the harbinger comet of the new century, stating, "A picture to its own sake." Literary Cubism does the same thing in Cubism is literature, using reality merely as a means and not as an end. In Cubist artwork, objects are analyzed, broken up and reassembled in an abstracted form instead of depicting objects from one viewpoint. The artist depicts the subject from a multitude of viewpoints to represent the subject in a greater context. Les Demoiselles d'Avignon. Les Demoiselles d'Avignon, the Young Ladies of Avignon, and originally titled The Brothel of Avignon, is a large oil painting created in 1907 by the Spanish artist Pablo Picasso, 1881 to 1973. The work portrays 5 nude female prostitutes from a brothel on Cara d'Avignon, Avignon Street, in Barcelona. Each figure is depicted in a disconcerting confrontational manner and none are conventionally feminine. The women appear as slightly menacing and rendered with angular and disjointed body shapes. The 3 on the left show facial features of Iberian style of his native Spain. The 2 ladies on the right are with African mask-like features. The racial primitivism evoked these masks, according to Picasso, moved him to liberate an utterly original artistic style of compelling, even savage force. In this adaptation of primitivism and abandonment of perspective in favor of a flat, Two-dimensional picture plane, Picasso makes a radical departure from traditional European painting. This proto-cubist work is widely considered to be seminal in the early development of both Cubism and modern art. Picasso's early Cubism paintings, known as his analytic Cubism works, include Three Women, 1907, Bread and Fruit Dish on a Table, 1909, Girl with Mandolin, 1910, Accordionist, 1911. His later Cubism works are distinguished as synthetic Cubism, for moving even further away from artistic typicalities of the time, creating vast collages out of a great number of tiny individual fragments. These paintings include Still Life with Chair Caning, 1912, Card Player, 1913 to 1914, Three Musicians, 1921, Three Dancers, 1925. Analytic Cubism. Three Women, 1907. The three women executed in a style which makes use of rough, almost violent striations, used to emphasize the different areas to the sides of the figures, while the figures themselves appear to have the rough-hewn bulkiness of much of the most characteristic contemporary African-influenced figure pieces. Each of the three women is now rendered somewhat differently. The figure at the left is the most African in appearance. The body of the woman to the right is modeled in softer, riper forms. The third figure is the most abstracted and schematic. Bread and Fruit Dish on a Table, 1909. Bread and Fruit Dish on a Table, 1909 is the grandest of Picasso's works from the first winter of the New Alliance and bears witness to his dialogue with Georges Braque. The canvas is an unusual size and shape for a still life, and in fact Picasso adapted the composition from studies for his own picture. Girl with Mandolin, 1910. Early example of analytic cubist painting. Painted from three models who sat in front of him. Color light brown, tan, yellow and olive green. The colors are dull, no bright color. Entire painting appears unified in color. Picasso analyzed the model's nude figure, broke it into many squares, cubes, rectangles and other unnameable geometric shapes. Arranged these shapes to show different parts of her body to make it impossible to see in a single glance. This makes this painting an analytic cubist painting showing multiple points of view in a single painting. Accordionist, 1911. 51.25 inches tall and 35.25 inches wide. All painting on canvas. Made up of many geometric shapes of different sizes. Mostly dense in the middle. Fanning out in a kind of triangle shape from the top to the bottom. Since there is no clear subject, the painting compels to decipher it. Dark colors in the center which attract the viewer to explore it. Picasso used drab and muted colors to emphasize the subject. The dull colors also show the different angles of subject. Synthetic Cubism. Still Life with Chair Caning, 1912. Pablo Picasso, Still Life with Chair Caning, 1912, all on oilcloth over canvas edged with rope, 29 by 37 centimeters. Still Life with Chair Caning is a form of early collage art, first developed by Braque in 1912, or synthetic cubism, because it incorporates materials other than paint such as cloth, rope, etc. The oval-shaped painting depicts a series of objects: a 2-0 clock, a knife cutting a lemon, a napkin, a wine glass, the word jou, meaning play, or daily, as in newspaper, in French, a pipe, a chair canning, a table, and the whole scene is enclosed by a rope. Three Musicians, 1921. Three Musicians is a large painting measuring more than 2 meters wide and high. It is painted in the style of synthetic cubism and gives the appearance of cut paper. This celebrated work, now in the New York Museum of Modern Art, is part of series painted while was with his young family in the Fontainebleau in the summer of 1921. It marks a return to high synthetic cubism and his enduring commedia dell'arte imaginary, commenced in the early days in Paris. His continuing association with the refined world of ballet, through his wife and through his work designing sets and costumes for Dia de Lève, is evident throughout. Card player, 1913 to 1914. Three dancers, 1925.